What's up, fight fans? This is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunch Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning Errol, the Truth Spence. Get this. Errol Spence Jr. wants to fight Terence Crawford for the fourth belt after Ugas. Errol Spence says that he believes it's a lot easier fight to be made between him and the WBO welterweight champion Terence Crawford now that the Nebraska native is no longer with Top Rank. IBF and WBC welterweight champion Spence, which is 27-0 with 21 KOs, said he'd like to explore the possibility of the two fighting for the fourth belt with Crawford after he takes care of business at hand with his next three-belt unification next month against the WBA champion Yordines Ugas, April 16th. Once Spence captures the WBA title, the only title that remains is the one in Crawford's possession, and he'd like to make that fight next, possibly. With that said, Crawford will need to be reasonable when it comes to negotiations because Spence has other options with Keith, one-time Thurman, and his IBF mandatory Jaron Boots Ennis that he can fall back on. And he said, I think it's a lot easier to be made. Obviously, I'm fighting for my third belt. Hopefully, we can get something on the table so we can fight for the fourth belt, said Errol Spence to DAZN. He said, on a fight between him and Terence Crawford, now possible given that he's no longer with Top Rank. Spence also wants to make the fight with Crawford, but it might not be doable due to the purse demands between the two fighters. If Spence and Crawford insist on making $10 million plus for the fight, it probably won't be done unless one of the Middle Eastern countries comes forward and is willing to put up the loot to make it happen. Okay, let me counterpunch. Great news to hear. Great news to hear it from Errol Spence. What aren't we hearing? We're not hearing anything definite. We're hearing probably not, possibly, exploring the possibility, it might not be doable. We're hearing doubts. Those are the holes that I see in what Errol Spence is saying. Don't get me wrong. I like what he's saying, but do I really believe it at this point? No. Why? Okay. Let me explain. Because last week he was like, oh, it really won't bother me if I don't get that because De La Hoya and Trinidad, they didn't do that. Mayweather didn't get undisputed. So if they didn't get undisputed, it wouldn't affect their legacy. Remember that? He just said that last week. So I'm like, okay, you went from that to now it's a possibility and it'll be easier without Bob Arum. For one, I think this was more geared towards Top Rank than anything else. Terence Crawford was the pawn that he used because he knows everybody wants to see that damn fight. He knows that, and I think he just needs to make that fight happen. He does have other fights. There is Keith Thurman. If Keith Thurman wants it, he probably don't care. I think Keith Thurman would take that fight now, but, I would like to see him with Boots Ennis, really. A bigger guy that's strong, powerful like him. You know what I mean? A lot of people call him the weight bully part 2. Because Jared Ennis is a big guy. He looks like a junior welterweight or a middleweight when you see him. But as far as him, he likes to explore the possibility. It's like, hey, it might not be doable due to the demands and this, that, and the other. Well, I don't like people talking about what they want to do and then right after that shooting themselves down or shooting the possibility of something that they said they want down right after they say they want something. I don't like that. Because it's like, to me, it's almost like saying something, oh man, I would like to do this, but it might not happen because I'm like, well, why so negative? Why say it at all? Why would you say, oh, possibly, let's look into the idea? It's like, okay, well, make the fucking fight happen. And then here's the weird thing. The weird thing, all those people that Errol Spence fights, none of them fucking guys, he doesn't get no money like that he demands on Terence Crawford. It's always some type of, when it comes to Terence Crawford, it's, oh, he wants too much money. I'm going to give him. You're not giving no one shit. Make the fight happen, negotiate. Like, do a fair negotiation. And honestly, I hope Yordines Ugas beats him, because I believe Yordines Ugas wouldn't have a problem with splitting that pot. He wouldn't have a problem with making that fight happen. Why? Because I think he really wants it. And then here's another thing. Who turned on the green light for this fight? You know what I mean? When did the green light come on for him to start talking about he wants Terence Crawford? You know what I mean? Like, who allowed that to be done? It had to be allowed, people. Don't get it twisted. He is not his own boss. Al Heyman runs the show. Okay? Because Al Heyman is in charge of talking to the networks, and the networks really run the show. So he's pretty much is the representative of the networks, PBC, Showtime, Fox. Okay? So, before it was like, oh, well, I take that belt and go through him. I had to take that. And then it's like, oh, well, he gonna mess around, have it 60-40 or 70-30 or whatever we give him. Like, okay, you're just being arrogant at this point. And that's the thing about boxing, though. Boxing has a funny way of having its own sense of poetic justice. So him saying the possibility of doing this, but it might not happen, don't get your hopes up. And then last week, oh, you know what? It won't really hurt me if I don't fight Terence Crawford. But then now you're saying this. I think it's damage control, honestly. I think he's just saying that because it's something that people want to hear. That's why I think he's saying it. Because he would take a fight with Keith Thurman. The Yordines Ugas fight he wanted to fight Pacquiao. You see what I mean? He was willing to do all that. But when it comes to Terence Crawford, oh, man, I ain't doing that. He got to take what I give him. And I'm like, okay, why are you getting so demanding over someone that's in their prime? Over someone that may give you a fight? Over someone that we don't know that you can beat? We don't know if you're favored in that fight. That shit may be a 50-50 fight between Errol Spence and Terence Crawford. Think about all the people that he fought. Danny Garcia, he was favored. John Porter, he was favored. Everybody that he fought, he was favored. Okay, so now when you get to a guy that's the boogeyman, or you call yourself the boogeyman, he don't even call himself that no more. You notice that? Errol Spence don't call himself the boogeyman no more. Right? That shit got erased off the chalkboard, people. So, again, it sounds good, but do I have my doubts? Yes, but I just explained the reasons why. You guys tell me what you think of Errol Spence saying that he wants Terence Crawford after he beats Yordines Ugas. Of course, please subscribe, and you guys been Counterpunch. Peace!